Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Warrensburg Area School District, where we are student-centered and future-focused for a world-class education. The June 15th board meeting is now called to order. I would ask that you please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would just like to announce if there are any participants that would like to address the board this evening. No one has signed up to address the board. I would ask that use the question and answer feature. Put your name and your address, and you'll be able to address the board for 5 minutes. But as of now, no one has signed up to address the board. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Blazer.
Present.
Mrs. Farrell.
Here.
Mr. Mattson.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mr. Paris.
Here.
Mrs. Bekevich.
Here.
Mrs. Pound.
Here.
Mr. Puschek.
Here.
Dr. Puschek.
Here, thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the addendum.
This is Amanda, so moved. Oh, I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion or modifications to the agenda or the addendum this evening? Hearing none, voting to approve the agenda and the addendum as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the May 18th regular board meeting and the June 8th work session.
Motion, this is Tara.
Second, Steve.
Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, voting to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you. For those of you that were on the Athletic and Extracurricular Committee meeting, we did end it abruptly to open up this meeting. Under school reports, I'll just ask if there are any further discussion from the board regarding the coach evaluation process.
Andy, I was just going to finish my sentence.
Yes, Mrs. Farrell, thank you, and sorry for cutting you off so we could get this meeting started.
No,
My
you're completely
apologies.
fine. I guess I think that it is something that should also be considered with a grain of salt and really thought about from athlete and parent feedback, and how you combine that and mesh that. I'm not exactly sure at the moment, but I do think that I think it might even be good for the coaches to hear what some of that feedback is in a not heat of the moment after a game scenario. So that was the end of my sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Farrell.
Yeah, this is Tara. I just want to add to what Amanda is saying. It doesn't mean that, like I said earlier, we have to act upon it, but it makes the coach.
Are you still there, Tara? We can't hear you. Mrs. Pound.
Sorry, my connection is bad. Can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to reiterate what Amanda was saying. The feedback that we get from parents and coaches and athletic directors and teachers only makes us better in the end. So whether we act upon it or not, I still think it's valuable feedback that we need to consider. So I'll shut up now.
Thank
This
you,
is
Mrs. Pound. Mr.
Steve.
O'Donnell?
Yeah, Mr. O'Donnell here. I'd like to suggest that for me, I'm sure you get lots of feedback from the people who participate in the athletic program or any of the activities in the district. The fact that you have a place that you're documenting that, so yeah, oftentimes the angry parents communicate after, they're really agitated because something happened. Maybe their kid didn't play. As long as we are documenting those things, and it appeared from your form that we do document that, I think that is very valuable. But if that's the only way we document, I know from working in the activities, you always hear the negative. You don't always hear the positive. So I'm curious about how you get that well-rounded when you're going through the review, you're going through all those lines, unless you're there to observe every single game or every practice with the coach. I'm curious how you get the other, and maybe you do get a lot of positive feedback. We just don't hear it. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell.
The only thing I'll say is,
Yeah.
well, and you kind of hit it on the head, Mr. O'Donnell. It's that balanced. It's about the quality of the data. I've been involved in these kinds of survey attempts before, and you get the overwhelming negative voice. Those are people that'll write you a made-for-TV AC miniseries, right, on how horrible the experience and the coach was. And the people that are satisfied, they don't say too much if they even bother filling the form. So the data, at least in my experience when I've tried this, it always comes back skewed. So that's all I'll say. It's a great idea. But it's hard to get it in a quality balanced manner.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin.
I'd like to see that same tool that he's crafted for the sports to be applied to other activities too. I think that actually it's a really thorough, if you go through and read that, it's very thorough in terms of the review. And I think that can be a powerful piece for an instructor or so it was well done.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Mattson.
Yes. Well, with this, and I agree with everybody, with Tara and Amanda and Steve, I think we do need the feedback from everybody to make it better, to help the coaches improve, and work on things that they may not know that they're doing wrong, just to help out. With that being said, Steve had mentioned that he does the evaluations on the coaches. Now, I know, Steve, you are the coach of the girls varsity and now going to be the 8th grade. Who will be doing the evaluation on you for those sports?
That's a good question. I think in the past it was going to be Leslie Hutchinson. So currently I'm not sure who exactly would do it. I don't know if if it's just the job of the assistant superintendent or if Mr. Miller would do it. I'm not 100% sure who would do that evaluation on me.
Well, I would say, looking at how PIAA expects sports to be run, it all sits under the high school principal. So it would make the most sense for Mr. Miller to do the evaluation.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to just add clarity. I actually am not in favor of a survey of parents of an activity. I'm curious about how we capture the positive so that there is a well-rounded review, because you will get all the negative because that's what happens. So I wasn't in favor of a survey. I'm not saying that's the right way to go. I'm saying I'm curious how we would get the positive. That was all I was saying.
Offering a nice $25 gift card to a gas station or a restaurant would actually entice everyone to fill out the survey.
I have
Good
one
or
item,
bad.
President.
Mr. Blazer, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, just a comment. It's just an idea. I'm not telling anybody how to do it, but I guess I wondered rosters. I know with the COVID regulations that we were just looking at, keeping track of attendance, keeping track of who's on the team is obviously critical. Perhaps Mr. Carter could just look and pick 3 parents or 3 athletes and sort of randomize a little bit some of the data and feedback he receives. Just an idea to think about.
It's not a bad idea. Make it random. Like you said, just pull names from a hat of everyone that was on the team.
Okay. That will conclude our
Oh, Andy, this is Julie.
Yes, Mrs. Pikevich.
Hi. I was just thinking about what everybody said, and when you're finished taking a college course or a master's class or whatever, the last practice or the last class time, they send, they give you a little survey that takes about 10, 15 minutes, and it's real simple. You just number 1, 2, 3 on how the coach was prepared, how practices were run, just some basic stuff. And that way the kids who are at practice every second and dealing with the coach have a better evaluation than a parent would, because a parent's not at practice, a parent's not listening or getting reminds for practice and games and things like that. So that might be just a quick survey by all the kids on the team. And secondly, I just want to say, can someone send out an all call home and an email possibly, or a text, whatever we send out for signups for fall? And that's all.
Mr. Carter, do you want to address that while we're still here with you?
Yeah, we will definitely send out an all call and or an email. It did get posted on the social media sites, but I know personally I got less than a 50% response on that. So we'll definitely have to push it again through targeting everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then that will conclude our athletic and extracurricular committee meeting. I thank everyone for letting us roll into the regular meeting. So now we're going to continue with school reports, and I'll recognize Superintendent Mr. Ken Berlin. Mr. Berlin.
Thanks, Dr. Pushchak. I guess we'll start with the high school and work our way to the elementary. So, Mr. Miller, you're up.
Okay, I had to unmute myself. I just wanted to start off by thanking everyone for everybody helped a lot with graduation. There was a lot that went into planning and organizing and implementing the whole thing, a lot more than it, maybe that you see on the front end. It'd be really implausible for me to try to thank everyone in person, but a lot of people helped in a lot of different ways. Even the community members and the parents and the kids, when they came into the school to shoot the videos, they did a great job, following all the guidelines that we set forth. So it really went very smoothly. And, like I said, a lot of people put in a lot of work to make that happen. So I was very happy with that. And some people might not have heard, but at the athletic committee meeting, we've been working on a document to restart sports in the school district. So I imagine, if that's approved at tonight's meeting, that would probably be made available to everyone. So we've been working on that. Report cards went out today. They should be available electronically at the high school, at least, electronically, and they are being still mailed out. I believe they'll go out tomorrow through the regular mail. We're working on the schedule. We're moving ahead with a normal schedule, with the understanding that, there will undoubtedly be some changes as we approach the fall. I know we talked as an admin team about that some today. So we are working on not only the normal schedule, but then various alternatives in case that we have to institute some type of hybrid schedule or whatever. Yearbooks came finally on. I know a lot of people are waiting for yearbooks. They finally came on Friday last week. So we're getting those organized today and tomorrow, and they're going to be handed out on Thursday. So, and we also have 20 extra in case anybody wants any extras. We have $65 copies of the yearbook that you can cash and carry. I think we have about 20 copies we can sell. And also the graduation ceremony DVDs are finalized. They're completed. We have them at school. They're going to also be picked up on Thursday, and whoever doesn't pick them up, we will mail them home to their houses. So that's what's been going on at the high school.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move on to the middle school.
Hello, everyone. I just want to commend the teachers again, working up to the last minute, the last day of school, getting kids involved in online learning the best they could. Even helping the special teachers get their kids involved as well. They probably had the biggest task seeing every student in the building. That's 400 plus kids for every specialist teacher. So that's a lot of work for them and getting those students involved. So even the content teachers were helping, making contact with those students. So they did a great job in getting everyone involved as much as they could. The honor roll, faculty honor roll certificates and medals went out in the mail today since we couldn't have our program in the spring. And report cards also went out in the mail today. So kudos to Carlene Johnston and Lisa Smith getting all that organized and getting that in the mail today. And scheduling has begun at the middle school as well. And that includes taking a look at ELA honors for 7th and 8th grade, identifying those kids along the same lines that we do honors math, and having a discussion of what that curriculum looks like at the middle school. So that's what's been going on at the middle school.
Thank you, Mr. Paris.
You're welcome.
Andy, this is Tara. Can I ask one question?
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
Back to the high school for the DVDs. Was that part of the package that we signed up for? Because it's on YouTube, which is there forever. Do we really need to waste postage to send these DVDs to people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we, give all the kids that memory for a lifetime. There's no guarantee that's going to be on YouTube forever. And even then, can they find it? So it wasn't much of a cost, and it's not going to cost us much to send them home. I think it's worth it. That way they have that copy, basically, and they can digitize it if they want to, if they don't have a DVD, some kids don't even have DVD players anymore. But we just felt it was a nice thing to do. And they can make copies for their grandparents or whatever, that they want to do. So we just thought for the cost that was involved, it was a good thing to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I'll say I'm gonna step in today for Hillary. So we're just gonna talk a little bit about on some of the topics that Keith and Chris kind of touched on. But first and foremost, I really just want to give kudos not only to the parents and the students at the elementary school, but also the staff. We are very lucky to have so many of our faculty members who actually don't live in the district, but they actually send their students to our district. They were able to provide firsthand feedback from not only a teacher's point of view, but also from a parent's point of view and the student's point of view when we were doing the online learning process. And they really all stepped up. The first week or so had its bumps and everything, but we really came together. And one of the nice things that our specials teachers did, and like Chris had mentioned, our specials teachers, I mean, not that they worked even harder, but they see each one of our students. So they kind of had a little bit more on their plate. They actually took it upon themselves to actually send out surveys to all the parents and students of the elementary to see how they thought, what did they like about the, online learning? What didn't they like? What would they possibly change? And we got a lot of great feedback from that. I'm not going to share it all. I will say almost 90 of our fourth graders actually filled it out, which was awesome. But a lot of the people said, it was difficult in the beginning. It was much simpler. Our teachers kept reassuring us that we were going to get through it. One parent actually said, "Thank you for being flexible with us parents. I have most definitely made the right decision to not be a teacher." But in this one, I really just want to end on this one as far as the comments. It just says, "Thank you for teaching me everything in K-4. I have learned so much from you, and thank you. Now I will be leaving since I will be in the middle school. Bye." And that was from a fourth grader. But overall, I couldn't be happier with the way things went. Everyone came together. Our yearbooks went out. There were only a couple mistakes in the yearbook this year. Overall, they were pretty good. And I really want to give kudos to both our secretaries for really keeping things going in that office. And without them, I don't know what would have happened, but Lynn and Linda deserve a lot of credit. So I guess I'll end with that.
Can I make a comment? This is Steve O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Calabrese. Yes, Mr. O'Donnell?
I'm not sure who at the elementary center is helping to distribute the food, but knowing that we needed people to come and take the food in order for us to get the numbers that we needed, my family did it, and my wife said it was very smooth. And then the amount of food that my family brought back, there's still food left, and I don't. It's earlier in the week when they picked us up. So whoever did that, they're doing an excellent job. So thank them on behalf of my wife.
I think,
Thank you, Miss.
I'm sorry. Are you speaking our donation box that we have outside of the regular meals, you mean?
No, I'm meaning the regular meals, the distribution.
The meals,
they're doing.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I can tell you, Vicky worked hard with the IU to set up that whole process, and so a lot of kudos goes to her. She's spent a lot of time on food service over the past several months.
Okay, thank you for those school reports. We really appreciate that. There are no guests or citizens that have signed up to address the board this evening, so we will continue on our agenda with the superintendent's report. Once again, the chair recognizes Mr. Berlin, Superintendent of Schools. Mr. Berlin.
Thanks, Dr. Pushak. Just a couple things quickly. I told you last week that we have to develop a health and safety plan for a return to school. We spent a lot of time on that as an admin team today, deciding which way to go, because there's a lot of talk, hybrid schedules, A/B schedules, how many kids can you put on a bus, all those things that I had mentioned before. But after talking about it exhaustively, we decided that we really need to get input from the community, the parents, and see where they're at and what their expectations are. So if we're in the yellow phase, we think that if we had the kids in the building, we'd have the space to keep everybody 6 feet apart. But it's that busing piece. Now, there was some new guidance released today saying that you can put one student per instead of one every other if they're staggered, like the first seat, the person sitting on the inside, the second seat, the person sitting on the outside of the seat. So that gets us down to up to 24 kids at a time. So if we do a survey, we want to collect information from parents. There might be parents that simply want to drive their children to school. So that's something we want to know, because that lowers the amount of numbers on the bus. There may be some parents that, until this thing fades over, they want a virtual option. So we want to collect that data. So what I'm saying there is, if we collect some of these key pieces of data, and we might make a change like staggering the start of the middle school. Right now, grades 5 through 8 come on all the buses with the high schoolers, and that takes every bus in the fleet. But when we go out to pick the elementary kids up, we don't run as many buses, obviously, because it's half the amount of students. So we could further balance it out by running grades 7 through 12 on the first morning run, and then K through 6 on the second morning run, and just do a staggered start. That would more evenly distribute kids over the whole fleet of buses. It would cost a little bit more, but I mean, we have to do what we have to do. So once we collect some of those numbers, we can see if it's possible to do everyday face-to-face instruction in the yellow, which I want to know what parents are thinking, what their expectation is, but there really is no substitute for face-to-face instruction. And if we can make it work safely, I think we should explore that. Now the numbers might come back and no, it's just too many kids on a bus. We don't have the funds to buy 40 more buses to get the social distancing. But at least we'll know. We'll be making the decision on how we restart school based on what the community is telling us. So that's really what I wanted to share. We're working on a plan. And the next step here is to gather some information from the community. And that's all I had at this time, Dr. Pushak.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. We do understand that there will be possibilities of plan revisions as things go forward, and we need to, like we had said before, react to the virus. It's still there, it's still here with us, and we will certainly try to have a plan that will, number one, accommodate our students the best for their learning, and then also help our parents with their planning. So thank you for your willingness and your team's efforts to put that plan together. Any questions for Mr. Berlin regarding his report?
Dr. Pushak, this is Amanda. I just had one.
Yes, Mrs. Farrell.
Nothing changes with busing whether we're in yellow or green, does it? I mean, it's more what the distance apart is with the students.
Yeah, in both stages, they're recommending. Well, in the yellow, you have to social distance. I like the way this guidance is worded, and I can paraphrase it. It says, like in buses, follow the CDC guidance to the extent possible. So that, it just puts us back on us. Now, obviously, we want to follow it to the greatest extent possible because we don't want a lot of sick children infecting their families. So that's really the point. In my mind, it all comes down to busing. That is the first number in the equation, and then we go from there. I really, I know the economy can't really get up and running until our two-parent working households can get back to working. So that's why the hybrid schedules, we want to see if we can avoid that and do it in a safe way. Because if we did AB days, for example, one day a week, a child would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the next week they go Tuesday, Thursday. So that creates, I think, possible childcare challenges for families because it's not consistent. And the other model would be to do an ABC, right? So like half the school comes on Monday, Wednesday, half the district comes on Tuesday, Thursday, and then everyone's home on Cyber Friday. That's a more consistent schedule, but it's a lot less face-to-face instruction. And now you're only getting 2 days of regular school, and then you're online those other 3 days. Which I guess I should add this too. I kind of meandered into this topic. We are going to be holding professional development with the teachers, so that if we do have to do some phased in and out, face-to-face to online, all of their programs, the platform is going to look more consistent. And we're also we're going to receive another large amount of money here from the state for COVID-related expenses. We want to look into some already made programs, platforms that are, they've already been thought out and they have curriculum modules that our teachers could actually run and oversee kids. Because we might have kids that, regardless, yellow, green, purple, brown, whatever, they might not want to come back. They just don't feel comfortable because of health reasons. So we want to make sure we have an option for those students. So quite a few irons in the fire. I hope I answered your question. I got off track a little bit there.
Well, again, we will wait to see what happens and got further guidance that we get, and our plan will reflect the best that we can for our students and our community. So thank you for your report, Mr. Berlin. The chair recognizes Mrs. Vicky Bendig for the Business Administrator's report. Mrs. Bendig.
Thank you, Mr. President. For tonight, I have several reports. The Treasurer's Report, cash in the bank as of May 31st, 2020, $4,087,924.37. And the budget versus actual report that I have prepared for this evening, just wanted to point out that we have 1 month remaining left in the fiscal year, which means we're 92% of the fiscal year complete. And We have collected 85% of the revenues budgeted so far this year. So just wanted to make mention of a few things. Earned income tax is a little behind due to COVID closures. So people not working means there's no earned income tax coming into the school district for people who pay that 1% on their salaries. We have some tuition that is still needing to be received, and that will be recorded once the invoices are sent to other school districts, once the PIMS reports are completed for the end of the school year. And the IDEA funding, if you notice, it's only 35% received. That's because the school district has to invoice the IU for the pass-through funds. So that will be happening in the month of June, and that'll be caught up for next month's report. On the expense side of the report, I'm happy to report that none of the categories are overspent in and of themselves, but there are a few categories that are overspent within the functions, meaning like instructional, there's purchase property services that is in the red. So with 92% of the fiscal year done, we've only expended 70.93% of the total budget, which I think puts us in a good position heading into the last month of the year. Also wanted to mention that the negative amount in the 1100, the instructional purchase property services, the 400 category, that was the purchase of hotspots and the cellular service for them that was approved at the board meeting in April so that we could get service to our families. The 500 category, special ed tuition to other school districts, that is tuition to other school districts and private residential institutions that are necessary for our students to receive those services. Also wanted to point out the negative in the technology services category, 22,500. That was the purchase of hotspots. And we are still due a refund from the initial supplier that will take away most of that negative amount. We're still working with them to get the remaining amount back from them that we had prepaid them for product that they were not able to provide to us. Under category 2271, this was a travel expenses for teachers to attend the PA Smart Grant workshop, which is covered by grant funds, but wasn't budgeted for due to not knowing the grant would be approved prior to the budget being approved. So we've spent the money knowing that we're getting funds, but it wasn't budgeted for at the beginning of the year. 2360-500 is the superintendent's section. That is the publication and postage for the Bobcat Pride that's has reached about 3 times the amount of families that we had initially sent to doing it ourselves. So that increases for some of the postage. And then the National Institute for School Leadership, there was Ken and Becca and the 3 principals attended those workshops from the IU. They were not previously budgeted for, but it was an excellent workshop for them to get some professional development for themselves. That's category 2360-800 and 2380-800. So some of those categories will be on the budgetary recommendation for budgetary transfer later on in the in the report on the agenda. So all in all, I think we're in a good position. 70.93% of the budget expended. We only have 1 month left. We'll see how that happens next month. Moving on, the Capital Projects Fund for the Treasurer's Report for the Capital Projects Fund, cash in that account as of, I'm sorry, this says as of April 31st. It should be May 31st, 2020. $1,949,656.90. This is for both the Capital Projects Fund and the bond proceeds that we had for the athletic complex. The Cafeteria Fund Treasurer's Report, cash in the bank as of May 31st, 2020. $148,118.64. And the next report is the statement of revenues and expenses for the cafeteria, the profit and loss. We had total revenue for the month of May, $54,801.60. And we had total expenses for the month of May, $73,200.23, for a net loss of the month of $18,398.63, which brings our year-to-date loss to $101,252.40. Okay, and then for the bill lists, checks written between the last board meeting and the work session totaling $110,161.45. And then checks written between the work session and the board meeting this evening totaling $23,065.71. And then the general fund bills for your consideration this evening totaling $304,420.28. The cafeteria bills for the month total $21,528.35. And capital projects bills for Connecto Electric, just one bill totaling $14,800. And the Seneca High School Activity Fund report, the total in that account, it totals as of May 31st, $68,088.86. And that is all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Bendig. I'll entertain a motion to approve the reports, payments, and invoices as presented.
Josh, so moved.
Second, Marty.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion for the business administrator this evening? Hearing none, voting to approve the reports, payments, and invoices as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Bendig. There are no items under legal advisement on our budget this evening. At this time, the chair recognizes Mr. Marty Pushchak for finance. Mr. Pushchak.
Thank you, Mr. President. A number of items tonight. We'll start off with F1. Looking to approve the monthly budgetary transfer from the budget versus actual report as outlined in Exhibit E, including the update information for F1 as presented on the addendum, which is $14,800 from the committed fund balance to the capital projects fund. So moved.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on F1 this evening? Mrs. Newfer, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Pushchak,
Yes.
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Pekevich,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Dr. Pushchak.
Yes, the motion carries.
Next item, F2, looking to adopt the general fund budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year in the amount of $25,917,477 as outlined in Exhibit F. So moved.
Steve O, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the adoption of the general fund budget F2? Hearing none, we have a roll call, please. Madam Secretary.
Mr. Pushchak,
Yes.
Mr. Blazer, Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Pekevich,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Dr. Pushchak.
Yes, and the motion carries.
Next item, F3, resolve that the Wattsburg Area Board of School Directors does hereby levy for the school fiscal year July 1, 2020 to and including June 30, 2021 on each dollar of the total assessment of all real property in the Wattsburg Area School District comprised of the borough of Wattsburg and the townships of Amity, Greene, Greenfield, and Venango in the amount of 19.7786 mils or $1,977.86 on each $100,000 of assessed valuation of taxable property for general school purposes and the payment of teachers' salaries and rentals to school authorities. And this amount reflects no increase from the 1920 fiscal year. So moved.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on the real property tax motion? And again, just to remind the public that even prior to the COVID pandemic, this administration worked hard to get us to a zero tax increase. And I applaud them and recognize them for doing that. And this board is ready to support that no tax increase. Any further discussion on F3 real property tax? Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Pushcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Bekevich,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Dr. Pushcheck.
Yes, the motion carries.
Next item, F4. Resolved that the Wattsburg Area Board of School Directors hereby reenacts upon the residents and/or inhabitants of the Wattsburg Area School District 19 years of age and older within the school district a per capita tax in the amount of $5 as provided for in the Public School Code of 1949, Section 679, as amended during the period July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. So moved.
Josh, second.
Any discussion on the per capita tax motion? Hearing none, voting to approve, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
Next item, F5. Resolved that the Wattsburg Area Board of School Directors hereby reenacts upon the residents and/or inhabitants of the Wattsburg Area School District 19 years of age and older within the school district a per capita tax in the amount of $5 as provided for in the Public Law 1257 dated December 31st, 1965 as amended, commonly referred to as Act 511 or the Local Tax Enabling Act 53 PS Section 6924.101 and what follows during the period July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. So moved.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on the Act 511 per capita tax? Hearing none, voting to approve the motion for the Act 511 per capita tax. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Next item, F6. Resolved, the Wattsburg Area Board of School Directors hereby reenacts and continues an earned income tax to be levied in the amount of 1% on salaries, wages, commissions, and other compensation earned during the period July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021 on all residents of the Wattsburg Area School District who have attained the age of 18 years and older, and on the net profits earned during said periods from business, professions, or other activities conducted by residents of the said district in accordance with Public Law 1257, dated December 31st, 1965, as amended, commonly referred to as Act 511, or the Local Tax Enabling Act 53 PS Section 6924.101, and as follows. So moved.
Steve-O, second.
Discussion on the earned income tax resolution. F6? Hearing none, voting to approve F6, earned income tax resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
Moving on to F7, resolve that the Wattsburg Area Board of School Directors hereby reenacts and continues a realty transfer tax to be levied in the amount of 1% on transfers beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021 of real property or any interest in real property situated within the Wattsburg Area School District in accordance with Public Law 1257 dated December 31st, 1965 as amended, commonly referred to as Act 511 or as the Local Tax Enabling Act 53 PS Section 6924.101 and as follows. So moved.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on the realty transfer tax? Hearing none, voting to approve F7, the realty transfer tax motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
F8, resolved that the Wattsburg Area Board of School Directors hereby reenacts upon the privilege of engaging in an occupation within the limits of the Wattsburg Area School District who have attained the age of 18 years and older, a local services tax in the amount of $10 as provided in the Local Tax Enabling Act 53 PS Section 6924.101 and as follows. During the period July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. So moved.
Josh, second.
Any discussion on the local services tax resolution? Hearing none, voting to approve the local services tax resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
F9, looking to approve the Act 1 exclusion resolution, homestead farmstead, as outlined in Exhibit G. So moved.
Josh, second.
Any discussion on F9, the Act 1 exclusion resolution? Hearing none, voting to approve the Act 1 exclusion resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
F10, looking to approve school lunch prices for the 2020-2021 school year, reflecting no change as follows for the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school as listed. So moved.
Amanda, second.
Any discussion on the food services lunch prices for the following school year? Hearing none, voting to approve F10 food services lunch prices. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Moving on to F11, looking to reallocate the district's credit limit with Northwest to include Susan Huff, accounting clerk, with a $5,000 credit limit. So moved.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on F11, reallocation of credit?
Hey, Andy, this is Tara.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
Did we consider what Josh brought forth last week on this?
I believe that was for the next item, F12.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on F11 reallocation of credit? And this is just simply to transfer this ability to the new employee. Hearing none, voting to approve F11 reallocation of credit. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Moving on to F12, looking to authorize Susan Huff to transfer funds and wire transfers on behalf of the district up to a limit of $2 million. So moved.
Amanda, second.
Now, is there any discussion on F12? Mrs. Pound.
Yeah, was there discussion on what Josh brought forth last week on lowering this limit since she was not, I guess, I don't want to say authorized, but had her credentials up to par?
Mrs. Bendig?
So our liability and administrators' insurance would cover anything that would happen on her behalf that was not correct. And this dollar amount is the amount maximum allowed by the bank. I will say that currently she does not have access to the bank accounts online. I'm doing all of the transfers, but in the event that I am out of the office and a transfer needs to be made, she will need to do that. It will also be set up that once she makes the transfer, I will need to approve it before it actually happens. So I just want to reassure everyone that it's okay to approve this. There are things in place to prevent anything from happening that shouldn't happen.
Thank you, Mrs. Bendig. Any further discussion on F12, transfer of funds agreement and wire transfer authorization? Hearing none, voting to approve F12. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Direct everyone to the addendum, F13. We're looking to approve the letter of engagement with Buffamonte, Whipple, and Buttafaro Professional Corporation to conduct the district's local audit and to prepare the financial statements for the 1920 fiscal year as outlined in attachment 1. So moved.
Amanda, second.
Any discussion on the audit engagement letter?
Josh, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Paris.
So we've approved them every year, I believe, since I was elected to the board. And do we have other options, or is this a state mandated company like the tax collecting bodies that we use? Because I think, is this the same group that gave us the audit with the findings on the transportation? And it was like almost like they needed to find something wrong in the audit.
No, that was the state audit. This would be a local audit.
Okay.
Those were the state auditors that had the finding for transportation. Is that okay, Mr. Paris?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on F13, which is on the addendum, the audit engagement letter? Hearing none, voting to approve F13 on the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I wish I had more, but that's all I have tonight, Mr. President. Thank you.
That's plenty, Mr. Pushchak. We thank you for your reports this evening. The chair recognizes Mr. Josh Paris for Buildings and Grounds. Mr. Paris.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 items on the agenda and 1 on the addendum this evening. Let's start with B1, a motion to approve the paving project to Cross Paving.
Amanda, second.
Any discussion on B1, the district paving bid award? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The motion carries.
B2, athletic field change order, motion to approve change orders number 3 and 4.
Steve-O, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on B2, the athletic field change orders number 3 and 4? This is going to be for the additional draining and for the new backstops for baseball and softball.
I have a question. Josh, did you meet with them?
I did. I was going to report out on that after B3.
Oh, okay.
Mr. President, this is Amanda.
This is Farrell.
For the backstop fencing change order, is it really just changing the fencing, or is it changing something that it could affect the field of play?
No, it would meet all current PIAA guidelines, would not impact the field of play. If we didn't do it, it would cause other alterations that would have to be made way beyond the scope of the project. So this is going to tie everything together nice and tight.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other
Hey, Andy,
discussion
it's
on
Sarah. I
B2?
do have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
I know that we have contingency in place for all of this and funds set aside for all of the change orders, but did they not see this in the very beginning? I fear that we're gonna go through all of the funds that we set aside for all these change orders that are coming through. Can we talk about that a bit?
Berlin?
Yeah, I guess I can just jump in. I mean, on a project this big, change orders are a fact of life, especially when you're dealing, you know, with natural, a natural system, drainage system. You can't predict everything. It's a little bit different than when you're building a new building or renovating an existing building. And even then you run into change orders. Now, we didn't have any for the middle school, but I can tell you that UNSC ate a lot of their profit because they guaranteed it up front. A little different project than the stadium project, though. So this is really nothing out of the ordinary. The backstop, I mean, I suppose it would be, you know, it could be optional, but it would really look awkward because they would have to tie the curbs and the existing fence around the back of the backstops. This is going to make it look like it was designed correctly from the beginning.
Can I jump in on that? On our phone call, we talked about the backstops, and they're going to install the poles for the backstop in the curbing that is part of the whole turf anchor system. So it looks like it was meant to be that way. So we don't have, like Ken was saying, something that looks awkward.
Thank you, Mr. Paris. Mrs. Pound?
Yeah, I agree. I wish we just would have actually identified that up front. It's, I don't know. It feels like we're going to go through all of this money when we could have, especially the backstop. I get the drainage change orders and the soil, but cosmetic things like backstops and fencing, you would have thought they would have thought of that in the beginning, especially when you think back on the very beginning conversations that we had with this company, way back, you know, whenever that was, December, November, they were guaranteeing that they would think of almost anything that needed to be done. And now we're in the change order number, you know, going on number 5. So I don't know. I'm just cautious of what's happening. That's all. Make sure we're spending our money wisely.
Thank you, Mrs. Pound. Discussion on B2. Hearing none, voting to approve B2. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And finally, B3 from the addendum. The change order for the non-compactable earth.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on item B3, which is on the addendum? Mr. Paris.
So we did have a phone call, the superintendent and myself, with Russ and Adam. And I think we should start from the beginning that I'm not sure everyone understands what a perk test is. So they dug holes on the stadium and they measure how fast water is absorbed into the soil. So obviously, it's been said before, the school district buildings are built on a swamp. Obviously, we failed that test. So Keystone got in contact with Laird, who is a local surveying and engineering company. They designed the new stormwater management containment area. They claim that they've used them in the area before and that they work properly. They should not be a maintenance issue for our staff, and they can control how much water either stays in that containment basin or is ejected out through the sprinkler system. So they answered, every question I had. I'm comfortable with that. And it was addressed. We're starting to truck dirt off site, and there's just no feasible way to use that dirt for either the band practice field or the soccer fields without going through major permitting. They even have to have permits just to store the dirt on site and not distribute it. And then we'd be encroaching on the wetlands. So, I think that it's just my opinion, get this dirt off site, get this stadium project done, and in the future, if there's funds available, address the practice fields at that point.
I wanted to thank Mr. Paris for meeting with the folks. Any questions for Mr. Paris? I'm sorry, Mr. Berlin, did you want to comment?
Yeah, it was pretty clear in our conversation that that front soccer field, just expanding it would be a very complex project. And it would call for its own drainage system. You'd end up with another retention pond out there, and then you'd have to replace wetlands somewhere else on the campus. I wish it was as easy as just directing a few triaxle trucks up to the front there and say, hey, just dump this, we'll level it out. But that's unfortunately against the law.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Paris, for your willingness to meet with them and report back to us. We appreciate that. Voting to approve B3 on the addendum, athletic field change order number 5. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That's all this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paris. The chair recognizes Mr. Jeremy Blazer for personnel. Mr. Blazer.
Thank you, Dr. Pushek. P1 is resignations. The motion is to accept the following resignations. Noel Naughton, David Knight, Stephanie Guild, and Lisa Kimball.
Amanda, second.
Any discussion on P1 resignations?
Josh, I just have a comment.
Yes, Mr. Paris.
I would just like to have it in the record that Officer Knight will be sadly missed. I think he did a fantastic job as our resource officer for the last few years.
I think this board agrees wholeheartedly with you, Mr. Paris. Any further discussion on P1 resignations? Hearing none, voting to approve P1. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
P2 is a leave request. The motion is to approve the sabbatical leave for Todd Talbot effective August 19th through January 15th of 2021.
Second, Amanda.
Any discussion on P2 leave request? Hearing none, voting to approve P2 leave request. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P3 is for summer help. The motion is to approve the following summer help: Mackenzie Jones, Noah Belden, and Christopher Lind.
Evo, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P3 summer help? Voting to approve the following summer help is in P3. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
P4 is for extended school year. The motion is to approve Samantha Sazoric as an ESY teacher anticipated the month of July 2020 and possibly August 2020 to be paid at the contractual rate according to the Wattsburg Area School District WEA collective bargaining agreement.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on extended school year? Hearing none, voting to approve P4 extended school year. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
E5 is for athletic trainer agreement. The motion is to approve the agreement between the Regional Health Service and Wattsburg Area School District for certified athletic trainer services effective July 1 and terminating June 30th, 2025, as outlined in Exhibit J.
Amanda, second.
Any discussion on P5 athletic trainer agreement? Hearing none, voting to approve.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Mr. O'Donnell?
So we're approving the effective date of July 1st. But we're not, are we sure that the athletic programs will begin July 1st? I mean, is there any way for us to, you know, if we know, okay, we're going to start, things will start and we'll need services starting in mid-July to say that we're really effectively, we just start July 1st or July 14th? Or is that not really, does that not really do anything in terms of compensation for that service? I know we discussed this in the work session, but the idea of the start date being July 1st.
I'd like to address that. This is a renewal of the contract. Our current contract is expiring, so this is just renewing the contract so that she can continue to service our students if and when activities resume.
Okay, yeah, I guess it was not a great question. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. O, we'll take it. Any further discussion on P5 athletic trainer agreement? Voting to approve P5 athletic trainer agreement. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
P6 is for superintendent performance evaluation. Motion to approve the superintendent's 2019-2020 annual performance evaluation.
Josh, second.
Any discussion on the superintendent's performance evaluation? I would just like to commend the superintendent on a positive performance evaluation, and we really look forward to working with him in the future. Voting to approve P6 superintendent performance evaluation. May we have a roll call, please? Mrs. Newfer?
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Spakevich,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Mr. Pushcheck,
Yes.
Dr. Pushcheck.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Berlin, and thank you.
Thanks, and thank all the board members. This has been an unbelievably challenging year, probably one of the most challenging of my career. But fortunately, we have a lot of great people that work here, and it really reflects just a team effort of everyone. I just happen to be the last piece of the puzzle there, sitting at the end of the chain. A lot of great work done by everybody throughout the organization, and a lot of good support from the board. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin.
P7 personnel appointments. The motion is to approve the following appointments: Amanda Uenick as a Wattsburg Area Elementary Center teacher, Samantha Szorek as a Wattsburg Area Middle School Learning Support teacher, Michael Rimzius as a LT substitute, Seneca High School, and Emily Menino as a Wattsburg Area Middle School Special Education teacher.
Tito, second.
Thank you, Mr. O. Any discussion on the 3 appointments on the agenda and the 1 on the addendum? 4 total. Hearing none, voting to approve the appointments as listed on the agenda and the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P8 job descriptions. A motion to approve the revised job descriptions as follows: the business administrator, Exhibit K; client technology specialist, Exhibit L; technology systems and service administrator, Exhibit M; technology systems and service network specialist, Exhibit N. Oh, I'm sorry, and PIMS child accounting coordinator, Exhibit O.
Amanda, second.
Any discussion on the job descriptions as presented? Hearing none, voting to approve the job descriptions as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
P9, our Act 93 agreement, the motion to approve the revised Act 93 agreement for the Technology System and Services Administrator.
Second, Marty.
Any discussion on the Act 93 agreement for the Technology Systems and Services Administrator? Hearing none, voting to approve. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Pekevich,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Mr. Pushcheck,
Yes.
Dr. Pushcheck.
Yes, and the motion carries.
P10, Business Administrator Employment Agreement. This motion is to approve the employment agreement between Vicky Bendig, a business administrator, and the Wattsburg Area School District effective July 1st through June 30th, 2025.
Second, Marty.
Any discussion? I would just like to thank Mrs. Bendig for her services. She's brought us a long way from where we were to where we are now, and we look forward to her continued leadership of the fiscal department. Any further discussion on P10? Voting to approve the Business Administrator Employment Agreement. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
That was yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Pekevich,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Mr. Pushcheck,
Yes.
Dr. Pushcheck.
Yes, the motion carries, and congratulations, Mrs. Bendig.
Thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity to continue to work with you. Thank you.
P11, this is the Wattsburg Area School District Organizational Chart. The motion is to approve the Wattsburg Area School District Organizational Chart as outlined in Exhibit P.
Is there a second?
Steve-O, second.
Second, Julie.
Any question or discussions on the organizational chart update? Hearing none, voting to approve the organizational chart update. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
P12, attendance at meetings. Motion to approve the attendance for travel reimbursement for all PDE-related meetings and the following meetings for the 2021 school year, as listed below.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on the attendance at meetings approval? Hearing none, voting to approve P12, attendance at meetings as presented on the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
That was all we have tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Blazer. And for anyone keeping score at home, Mr. Pushcheck wins in finance for 13 items. Mr. Blazer is a close second with 12 items. So thank you, Mr. Blazer, for getting us through the personnel items.
I'm sorry, but this is golf rules. So when we get to mine, I'd have 0. So I'm just saying.
High score wins today, Mr. O. High score wins. Okay, the chair recognizes Mrs. Amanda Farrell for policy, and we thank the audience for allowing us a brief comedy relief moment. Mrs. Farrell, policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 items this evening under policy. The first is P1. I'm stuck on how many they had. So PL1, a motion to approve the second reading of the following policies listed below.
Steve-O, second.
Any discussion on the second readings of the policies as presented on the agenda? Hearing none, voting to approve the second readings. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
The second item, PL2, administrative guidelines. Motion to approve the administrative guidelines for policy 810 as outlined in Exhibit X.
Is there a second?
Josh, second.
Any discussion on the administrative guidelines? Hearing none, voting to approve PL2, administrative guidelines. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The motion carries.
That is all the items I have tonight, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Farrell, for your 2 items. The chair recognizes Mrs. Julie Pikevich for curriculum. Mrs. Pikevich.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I have several items under curriculum tonight to be approved. C1, Erie County Special Education Transition Program. C2, Study Sync. C3, Honor Distinction. C4, Personal Finance course. That's coming up. C5, the Pear Deck and Loom.
And 1 item on the addendum, which is C6, the seesaw motion.
Let me click over to that. I gotta scroll down. There we go. Okay, do you want me to redo C2 since there's a few things added to it?
You can just say as presented on the addendum as well.
Okay. So C2 as presented on the addendum and also C6 for the seesaw. And that is all for tonight.
Is there a second?
Steve-O, second.
So we have 6 items total on the agenda and the addendum. C2 is just an increase in price to include the 11th grade study pilot, and C6 is an addition. So any questions or discussion on the 6 items in total under curriculum? Hearing none, voting to approve those 6 items as presented on the agenda and the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Pikevich.
Thank you,
Chair
Mr. President.
recognizes
That's all.
Chair recognizes Mrs. Tara Pound for technology. Mrs. Pound.
Hello, I have nothing for tonight, but I'm with Steve. I think low score should win, and we're in a tie tonight.
We'll make sure the record reflects that, Mrs. Pound. Thank you, Mrs. Pound. Chair recognizes Mr. Steve O'Donnell for transportation. Mr. O'Donnell.
I have nothing on the agenda, but I do have a question. With the decisions that are going to have to be made, just in the same way that we looked at COVID and we had that separate meeting to discuss athletics, might we want to plan some type of meeting to discuss transportation at some point, maybe close to our meeting in August, or we could just make it part of a regular meeting, but I don't know at what point the board is going to look at and discuss whatever decisions come with transportation.
Sure. The July board meeting is exclusively planned for the return to school. We normally do not meet in July. So under miscellaneous this evening on the addendum, we're going to add July board meetings, both work session and regular meetings. So I would anticipate at that time, part of the plan will include transportation issues to be worked out up until that point.
Okay.
So if that's okay, I think that's probably part of what we're going to be doing in July.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Then that's all I have then.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. The chair recognizes Mr. Sean Matson for athletic and extracurricular. Mr. Matson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 items to be approved this evening, plus 1 on the addendum. For under athletic extracurricular activities, AE1 is the extracurricular resignation to accept it for Derek Peterman as the stage coordinator effective May 19th, 2020. AE2 is the extracurricular appointments as mentioned in the exhibit. AE3, which is the athletic appointments, also mentioned in the exhibit. And for my addendum, I have AE4, the Wattsburg plan for resocialization of the sports with the attachment as we talked about earlier.
Okay, those are all in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Steve-O, second.
Okay, any discussion on the 4 items under athletic extracurricular, 3 on the agenda and 1 on the addendum?
I have one comment, and that is, I know that Derek Peterman is resigning as the stage manager. He had no experience going in as stage manager with theater, and I thought he did a fantastic job. For those of you who went and saw Little Mermaid and saw the sets that he put together, dealing with rented mics and rented backdrops, and I thought he did a fantastic job for having no background in it, and he was a pleasure to work with. So I'm sad to see he's resigning, but he did a great job filling in when he was there.
Yeah, he really did. He's a great teacher too. He's really doing great things with that tech program, and he wanted to keep doing it, but then he kind of realized that he's taken on 2 coaching positions that he wasn't going to be able to. So the kids are still going to benefit from him being involved with extracurriculars, which is a plus.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for the comments about Mr. Peterman. Anything else on the 4 athletic or extracurricular items?
Mr. President, I had a comment.
Yes, Mr. Blazer.
So in the addendum, when we're adopting the current resocialization of sports plan and authorizing administration, just a recommendation, I glanced through what we have as our attachment. It doesn't specifically say anything about kindergarten through 6th grade. It just says that this applies to junior and senior high. So I guess my recommendation is that somehow we clearly identify what our rules are, or whatever we're going to do for the younger grades. There's half the student body basically that participate in those sports. And I know these things get shared through social media. I know I had a lot of people contacting me about cross country when the sports signups for junior and middle high were released because someone put them on Facebook. So I guess as long as it clearly identifies who it's for and who it's not for, or helps provide some guidance, because someone that has a 3rd grader might read through it and be unclear on how it applies to them, because it just doesn't say anything about those grades.
Is there any objection to adding a statement to the plan reflecting that, which grades it actually applies to? Mr. Berlin, is that something we can easily do?
Yeah, and especially the way the motion's written, we can make that change.
Yes, it certainly can.
I'd like to add that beyond just saying which grades it applies to, if there are grades that it does not apply to, that we probably need some language around that as well.
Sounds good. Okay, hearing no further discussion, voting to approve the 4 athletic and extracurricular items as identified on the agenda and the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Mattson.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We have 4 items under miscellaneous this evening on the agenda and 2 items under miscellaneous on the addendum for a total of 6 items. And just to remind you, well, let's go ahead for a motion. I'll entertain a motion to approve the 6 miscellaneous items as presented on the agenda and the addendum.
Amanda, so moved.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Just to remind everyone, we are adding July board meetings. We usually do not meet in July, but we are going to meet on July 13th for a work session and on July 20th for a voting meeting. Any further discussion on the 6 items under miscellaneous?
Andy,
Yeah.
it's Sarah. I have a
Yes,
question.
Mrs. Pound.
For the surplus M2, there are library books under there. What do we do with those?
We often just offer them to the kids. Like when they come back to school, we put them out on tables and they can take them home. Typically what we've done.
Gotcha. Okay. Do we ever donate them to other schools that are in need, or have we ever considered that?
Yes, we have done that before as well. So the librarians usually take care of it. They seem to kind of be in the know as to who needs things in their world. And they help other schools out that don't have libraries as well stocked as ours.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to make a note about the Kidder Media. Did a little renegotiating there. We've always used Haynes Printing to do all our printing at the local outfit. He's in Northeast, and they've always done a great job. And I kind of wanted to keep using the local people to the greatest extent. So I reached out to him and Kidder Media. So Kidder's going to produce, with their graphics team and their writers and their photographers, they're going to produce the mailing. But then our local company, Haynes Printing, will print and mail. That's all I had on that topic.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Berlin. Voting to approve the 4 items under miscellaneous I'm sorry, 4 items on the agenda, 2 additional items under miscellaneous, 6 total agenda and addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Our miscellaneous items are approved. Thank you. Mr. O'Donnell, anything for Erie County Technical School?
Nothing to report.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. That does not count against your score or for your score this evening. I gave my report last week for Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit. Brings us to board correspondence and dialogue. Anything from the board this evening? I would just like to recognize the administration again for working in these interesting times of putting all of these types of return to school plans together, return to athletic plans together, and ask the community to be patient with us and to be understanding when these things change. We'll try to get information out as soon as we can. And then please be reminded that we'll hold a board work session on July 13th and a regular board meeting on July 20th. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Amanda.
Steve-O, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for everyone that attended our meeting this evening. Have a safe Zoom home. Good night, everyone.
Thanks a lot.